Gentleman from Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Hensling, the ranking member of Financial Institutions Subcommittee.
The gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, the cause of our financial crisis is really federal policy, that strong arm, that cajole that facilitated financial institutions to loan money to people to buy homes who couldn't afford to keep them, and people who decided to buy more home than they could afford and now expect their neighbors who didn't to bail them out. I mean, Mr. Speaker, it's not a matter of deregulation. It was a matter of dumb regulation, and there was no dumber regulation than that which created the government-sponsored enterprises and gave them an affordable housing mission and ended up buying the lion's share of troubled mortgages or insuring the troubled mortgages in the system. Again, it wasn't deregulation, it was dumb regulation, and all this bill before us does is perpetuate the same dumb regulation that got us into this financial pickle in the first place. The bill before us doesn't go to the root cause. It leaves the government-sponsored enterprises, which represent, among other things, the mother of all taxpayer bailouts, $147 billion in counting, with $1 trillion of taxpayer exposure, they're left in place. Amendments Republicans offered to reform the government-sponsored enterprises, no, those are somehow out of order. Amendments that would have put them on budget, no, those are somehow out of order. And in fact, an amendment, there's only one little study in this. There's lots of studies. One study dedicated to the government-sponsored enterprises, an amendment that would have ensured the study at least try to figure out how to make the taxpayer whole. The Democrats voted that down. They're even scared of a study that would somehow try to make the taxpayer whole. Instead, what does this bill do, Mr. Speaker? It creates a permanent bailout authority. There's only one reason to have a bailout authority, and that's for bailouts. If you want more taxpayer-funded bailouts, this is the bill for you. To paraphrase a line from the old Kevin Costner movie, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. That's the whole reason to have a bailout authority. The federal government can lend to failing firms. They can purchase the assets of failing firms. The federal government can guarantee the obligations of failing firms. The federal government can take a security interest in the assets of failing firms. This is a bailout authority. The big will get bigger, the small will get smaller, the taxpayer will get poorer. Now, I know our friends on the other side of the aisle continue to say, well, the taxpayer is not going to have to pay anything. Well, the Congressional Budget Office, headed by a Democrat, they seem to differ. I have a copy of their analysis of the bill dated June 28th. Quote, CBO estimates that enacting the legislation would increase direct spending by $26.9 billion. Most of that amount would result from provisions that would establish a program for resolving certain financial firms that are insolvent or in danger of becoming insolvent. Now, they're notorious for lowballing these estimates, but even they say that ultimately taxpayers will be called upon for this bailout authority. Mr. Speaker, the best way to end taxpayer bailouts of failing firms is to end taxpayer bailouts of failing firms. And that's really the choice presented before us. Bankruptcy versus bailouts for failed Wall Street firms. The Democrats obviously choose bailouts. Second of all, Mr. Speaker, this is a job killer, pure and simple a job killer. It creates a new federal institution to ban and ration consumer credit. The Chamber of Commerce, representing Main Street, not Wall Street, estimates this will increase consumer interest 1.6% and that 4.3% fewer new jobs will be created. I hear from community bankers in my district, Cad Williams, East Texas National Bank. If I have more compliance cost and the federal government is going to limit the types of customized credit products I can offer, we will lose jobs in Anderson County, Texas. I hear from constituents, small businessmen. Tim Ratliff of Combine, Texas. I own a small business. I'm a distributor for promotional products that come from suppliers all over the country. Without easy, reliable access to that credit, I'm out of business. Mr. Speaker, again, this is a job killer. I haven't even talked about the huge new expansion of government within this bill. This should be defeated. I yield back.